Welcome back here to Puhelava. Now we will have a discussion on an issue that cannot be ignored, not from the perspective of human rights, peace, nor equality. The ongoing genocide in Palestine is not just a war, it is a humanitarian crisis rooted in systematic denial of human rights. Palestinians are being forced to survive under relentless bombing, siege, famine, and colonization, while in the West, the international community and governments have remained silent for too long. This discussion explores what could a decolonial and justice-based peace look like in the context of Palestine-Israel, and what is the role of Finland and the Finnish people in building that peace.
Yes, and welcome also on behalf of me. It's lovely to see so much people here listening here. So joining the conversation are Noora Dadu, chair of the Finnish Palestine Network Sumud, as well as an actor and author. Georgia Gerike, researcher and founding member of Nahlieli, Jews for Justice in Palestine, and Ilaria Tucci, theater maker and board member of the European Peace Research Association. This discussion is going to be moderated by Lili De Paola, Middle East expert and coordinator at Sumud. Please welcome our lovely speakers.
Woo, 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 woo.
So on behalf of Sumud, the Finnish Palestine Network, I would like to wish you all warmly welcome to this panel discussion. Our topic tonight is Finland's role in advancing a just and sustainable future in Palestine-Israel. I am Lili De Paola, Sumud's coordinator, and I will be facilitating the discussion. This week, there has finally been a shift in the tone and language of the Finnish media and many Finnish politicians with regard to Israel's ethnic cleansing in Gaza. This shift has come after over 1.5 years of genocide and at a point when the situation in Gaza is at its worst. Before this, the reality on the ground in Palestine-Israel has long been that of one state, one apartheid state. The international community and its actions and inactions have played a key role in enabling decades-long appropriation of Palestinian land and the denial of Palestinian rights, and this has now escalated into a full-blown genocide. In internationally backed peace negotiations, from the Oslo process to the Abraham Accords, Palestinians have been disadvantaged and even completely excluded from discussions on Palestine's future. In our conversation, our focus will be on the role of Finland and the international community in moving away from colonialism, apartheid, and an illegal occupation, and towards a decolonial and rights-based future in Palestine-Israel. So to start us off, Noora Dadu, you are Sumud's chairperson, and Sumud advocates for a decolonial and rights-based future in Palestine-Israel. Could you explain what that means?
Yes, definitely. First of all, it's wonderful to see so many people here, and it has been quite remarkable week in general to see more and more people wake up to the horrendous situation in Palestine, and I wish that we will keep inviting more people, like all of you, in. But to go to the rights-based approach or rights-based solution, Sumud has signed also this approach, which is, I will read from the notes to get it all right. And this is a suggestion that has been signed by at least 40 or 50 Palestine organizations, NGOs around Europe, by European Coordination of Committees and Associations for Palestine. ECCP supports a rights-based approach focusing on the fundamental rights of the Palestinian people as opposed to a solution-based approach or solutions. As we have all read in Helsingin Sanomat 100 times and Yle 1,000 times, the discussion about two-state solution, and we never hear what that actually means and what is actually outlined from that solution. And we actually haven't had real discussion of why Oslo failed why Oslo never was a real solution for justice. So this kind of answers to the questions that was left outside from that so-called peace solution that was never about peace, but compromises and sales for Palestinian rights. And that's why it failed. First of all, the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination as enshrined in international law and relevant UN resolutions. So international law is the key, and that's what Sumud also follows in our principles. An end to the 1967 occupation of all Arab lands, particularly all the occupation of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and Gaza and its associated regime. And then the right of Palestinian citizens of Israel to full equality, respect, protection and promotion of the right of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes as stipulated in UN Resolution 194. And I could not underline this resolution and this point enough. And this is, in my opinion, the most important point that has been forgotten completely from the discussion internationally, the right of return. And this means more than 6 million Palestinian refugees outside of Israel-Palestine. So you can wonder what it means when these people get the right to return. That is their legal right. And we have this two-state solution. It will be 2 states with Palestinian majority. So maybe equal state, equal rights might work better in a place that is the size of Uudenmaan lääni. And then as a last point here is the unconditional release of all Palestinian prisoners, or as we say, hostages.
Thank you, Noora.
Yeah.
Georgia Gerike, you are one of the founding members of Nahlieli, Jews for Justice in Palestine. Nahlieli also emphasizes the importance of decolonization. What does decolonization mean to you, and how do you approach peace negotiations in Palestine-Israel?
So firstly, I would like to say thank you to Sumud and thank you to the World Village Festival for having us here to speak. I think one thing that is very important for me to emphasize is that right now in this moment, it feels very absurd for me to be talking about peace in the face of a genocide, because it implies that there are 2 equal sides, when in fact Israel is the clear aggressor. So we have been fighting almost for 2 years to stop the active genocide of the people of Gaza, during which Israel has acted with total impunity. And the international community has failed to even treat this as a war, yet alone a genocide. And do basic things like protect journalists, protect hospitals, ensure that the prisoners are treated, or also, as we like to say, hostages are treated with human dignity, and ensure that aid reaches civilians. So that is something that I really want to make clear. Legal scholar Noora Dadu has pointed out, and so has Noora here, that there is sufficient law to end this genocide on an international level and to lift the blockade and to realize Palestinian self-determination. And so as people are finally waking up to what is happening, we need our governments to acknowledge Israel's campaign as genocide. And we need them to impose arms embargoes and block the ports, sever diplomatic ties, sever trade agreements, and unseat Israel for its transgressions. At the same time, I think it's really also important to recognize that international law in general and the ICC have historically never really prevented genocide, but have only been able to deal with the aftermath. We didn't get here overnight, and we didn't even get here in the past 2 years since October 7th. The Palestinian struggle has lasted over 76 years, and it's clear that our approaches to peace thus far have failed Palestinians. So we need to acknowledge the failures of these systems in protecting Palestinians, and we need to acknowledge why they are rarely utilized to stop colonial violence and only being utilized when they're not threatening Western self-interest. In general, we also need to acknowledge how the concept of peace negotiations have historically been used by Zionists to maintain colonial domination. Jewish safety and Palestinian safety are not opposing causes. And it's become increasingly clear to me and to other Jews across the world that decolonization and liberation of all oppressed people is the only means to achieve a just and sustainable future. And so that means we need to acknowledge that there is uneven terrain between the oppressed and the oppressor. And we need to stop trying to reform these rotten systems that are based on colonialism, and that are meant to protect the status quo, but actually recognize that the only way forward is to dismantle them. So practically what this would look like is the right of return, listening to Palestinians and allowing them to lead the fight and to have control of the land that Zionists have taken from them, to give them resources to rebuild what Israel has destroyed without any restrictions. And any solution for peace that doesn't take this into account isn't a sustainable solution.
Ilaria Tucci, you are a peace researcher and also board member of the European Peace Research Association. The concept of positive peace is often used to emphasize that peace is not just the absence of violence, it also means just and sustainable structures. What do you think positive peace means in Palestine-Israel?
Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here. And thank you, Lili, for inviting me to this really important discussion, or maybe we should say just panel. I think positive peace is something related strongly with what my colleagues here, Noora and Georgia, have said. It's, as you said, is not only the absence of violence, is a really, really crucial concept that justice and sustainability needs to be there to have positive peace. But then what does it mean? Palestine has gone through such a horrible journey, and the way to get to positive peace is really long and complex. So to get there, first of all, we need to stop this genocide. Like that's the must. And then probably positive peace could mean the creation of, may I say, one state where Palestinians and Israeli live together and do together their own peace. So the problem is, again, as already Georgia mentioned, that after so many decades of oppression, violence, colonialism, and escalation of violence, we need to think about that this is not something that will happen in one bit, but it's a really long journey, and it will be crucial to have a people-centered, community-centered process, and the communities need to truly work together without any top-down interaction. So surely to have positive peace in the long term, we need to refer to international law, as it was already said. We need to refer to Genocide Convention and UN resolutions that we already have there. We have the frameworks, we just need to put them in action. And I would say that probably we need to also take into consideration in this long process of reconciliation, justice-based, we need to consider about the deep intergenerational traumas that youth and children went through. So they need to be at the center of this process. They need to have the ownership of the peace process. So inclusive mediation and justice, like justice is the key word, in my opinion, when we talk about positive peace in the case of Palestine. But at the same time, I need to acknowledge and confess that it sounds really awkward to speak about positive peace today, like in this real moment. But yes, that's my point of view.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it feels awkward to talk about peace is also the background that peace processes in Israel-Palestine have historically been unsuccessful and also deeply asymmetrical. For example, in the Oslo process in the 90s, Israel had significantly more political leverage as well as significantly better military capabilities, and Palestinians ended up being in a lot weaker position and making many more concessions. In fact, the Oslo process amplified rather than addressed any of the root causes of the harmful dynamic between Israel and Palestine. It accelerated the colonization of Palestinian lands as well as the denial of Palestinian rights. So, Noora, perhaps you can tell how, in your view, did the Oslo process affect the Palestinians, and can you briefly outline the main points?
Okay. Underlined briefly. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Well, I was a child when Oslo happened, and I could tell from a personal experience that there was a moment that at least in our family we felt hope and joy, and there was this kind of imagination that now we start, as they said, that we start with this process, and then in upcoming years, all the other questions will be negotiated, meaning the right of return, meaning all the rights that will not be in the first table, but they will become later. So you can imagine the feeling, what comes later when after 1 year, 2 years, Palestinians realized it was full cheating. Nothing came after. There only more things were lost. As you know, the settler building like exploded, and how I feel that it broke the Palestinian community. Like, and I don't talk only about PA, but the whole sort of society. It created the situation where we could rightfully say that PA sold the Palestinian cause and they sold our rights. It broke families and it established this silence upon the topic. I remember that there was almost like no discussion inside the family for years, like after everybody realized that we had been cheated and even scapegoated. That in the news you could see everywhere that the Palestinians are the one causing the trouble, and nobody is telling what is actually happening. So it's like turmoil. It's something like turns upside down, and then following the second Intifada, naturally, of course, violence occurs when when you realize that it was a joke. So and as for example, who was this? Well, Raja Shihade, for example, in the What Does Israel Fear in Palestine, he said that the Oslo also broke the movement worldwide for 10, 20 years. So we could say that actually in the past 7 years, maybe after 2018, we have started to sort of recover from the Oslo disaster and understand that there should have never been this sales market for the human rights. There is no solution without full human rights, full basic rights. Palestinians as whole people.
Okay, Ilaria, going back to you, how do you think these past mistakes could be avoided in future peace-building efforts? And how could peace mediation be decolonized?
I think again, when we think about the target group, that's a really way, no, to sometimes to mention like who are the ones suffering, the target group. The target group needs to be in the center. So Palestinians, people need to be in the center. And then that's the way to avoid past mistakes. Again, we need to have a shift in the approach. We need to think about how the power was so imbalanced, and there was no inclusivity, there was no inclusion, but there was exclusion of human rights from negotiations. So again, I second Noora, is about putting the human rights at the center of the process. And so I would say that decolonized peace would be negotiation not led by Western states, for example, especially US-led diplomacy, I think should be out. I also, but then maybe it could be also like the. I think Palestinians and Israeli could look at the different models, could see at the model provided by South Africa, or I don't know, Brazil, and maybe that would be a way to get a decolonized peace process. But at the same time, I really believe that the people need to have the ownership again. That's the main point. So surely we should recognize that Israel has been involved in a really geopolitical strategy that was not only about military occupation, but it included forced displacement and ethnic cleansing, and this needs to be acknowledged. And then again, I just say, I repeat myself, justice-oriented mediation. So mediation should be based on justice. And we need to make sure that peace efforts are addressing systemic violence, racial discrimination, and apartheid policies. It's not just ceasefires. It's about human rights and justice.
Yes. Georgia, how do you see the role of Jewish diaspora organizations such as Nahlieli in a decolonization process? And how do you see Nahlieli's role in the global Palestine movement?
So I think building a sustainable future for us all means that we must fight against injustices both in Palestine but also in Finland. And so as a group, we embrace this idea of diasporism, or in Yiddish, Deutschkeit, which in English translates to here-ness. And this is a term that originated in the early 20th century and was created by Jewish socialists. That means that as Jews, we should stay where we are and build a Jewish life and Jewish culture where we live. And so I think we can contribute to decolonization through fighting for justice in the places we currently live and building strong Jewish communities that don't need Zionism and that don't need a state to feel safe. So instead, I propose we find safety through solidarity. As a Jewish organization, we learn from our history that never again is not just for us, but it is for all oppressed people. And when we are witnessing this genocide in Gaza, we see it as our duty to stand in solidarity with Palestinians and support their struggle for liberation and for justice. I think by practicing solidarity, engaging in activism and advocacy, and educating our communities, we aim to build these sustainable grassroots movements that don't need a Jewish state and that have the power to challenge and speak out against Zionist and complicit institutions. And I think for too long, governments and institutions have normalized and perpetuated colonial violence and played key roles in either actively or complicitly carrying out this genocide or allowing it to continue. And I think this complicity often goes unnamed. There's been widespread complicity that has allowed us to get to this point. And I think a quote that keeps coming back to me in this moment is, the people who hid Anne Frank, they were breaking the law. And the people who killed her, they were following the law. And in this current moment, when we look at the messages coming out of Gaza, we are on social media, we are seeing thousands of Anne Franks. So we see it as imperative to demand accountability from institutions to do what is right. And I think an example of something that we've done to challenge this complicity is to use our voices to address the instrumentalization of anti-Semitism by people who want to spread propaganda. And our goal is to challenge censorship and make it safer for everyone to act. We believe that the fight against colonialism and Zionism must be intersectional and address these oppressive systems like capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy. And by not dealing with the root causes that caused the Holocaust, like racism, xenophobia, and instead sort of just transferring it on to different groups, Europe has played a key role in setting the stage for this current genocide. So as long as those systems remain intact, the liberation will not be possible. And these cycles will just continue to repeat themselves. So I want to end maybe with a quote from Fannie Lou Hamer, which is that none of us are truly free until all of us are free.
On that beautiful note, I would like to say thank you to our panelists and to our audience. Our time is up.
I want to say one thing, just to correct one, that there will not be no mistake left.
Yeah.
Sorry. Because I talked about one state solution. That is what I would prefer, but I must underline that it is for Palestinians to decide.
Right.
Yes. So I cannot decide it myself unless I get the citizenship of Palestine. Then I will have one vote. But it is 14 million Palestinians who need to have the self-determination. Right. And when we acknowledge the rights of Palestinians, we must understand that we need self-determination, yes, safety, protection, justice, and Israel needs accountability.
Yes. Sorry. Very important point. Thank you, Noora. And in case you would like to learn more about Sumud and our work and continue the discussion, you're welcome to join us in the Lampia space right here in the foyer. We'll be there just as we get off the stage. Thank you so much.